Church, I want to take a moment to ask ourselves, for us to take a pause here and to find out what it is that defines us. And I think ultimately we know that should be Jesus. We know that it should be our Maker, it should be our King, the one who sent his Son in order to redeem us and to buy us back. But I don't think that we can always, if we're going to be truthful, that we can identify that we are known only by our King. Even though that's what should be the case. Sometimes things vie for our attention so much so that we find ourselves being pulled and going back and forth between different things and serving different things. And so I want us to pause, especially at this time of life, this season of life, and to ask, what mostly am I defined by? If you were to look at your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed, or if you were to ask somebody to do that for you, and then ask them, what am I most defined by? What would they say? What things have you been posting? What things have you been liking and sharing? In what ways would you be defined by what you're doing, by what you're showing through social media? Are you going to be most closely aligned or defined by your political leanings? Is it going to be by your hobbies? Is it going to be by your work? Is it going to be by the way your own maybe ideologies? Or is it going to be by the King? Now, I'm not advocating and saying that every single thing you have to post has to be scripture or a worship song or whatever. But just the way we even carry ourselves on Facebook or Twitter can show whether or not we really belong to the King or not. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Are we displaying those things? And the reason why I bring this up is because there's a passage in 1 Kings chapter 18, and we know this actually pretty well because it's the scene where Elijah is getting ready to go against the prophets of Baal, and they're both going to try to call down upon their gods, the prophets of Baal to Baal, and Elijah to Yahweh, to bring down fire on their sacrifices to basically see whose God is better. But before we get to the scene actually happening, Elijah asks the people, how long will you go on limping between two opinions? And the reason why he said that is because part of their ritual, part of their trying to get their God to do something, ends up being where they limp back and forth in some sort of dance to try to get Baal to notice them and to recognize that they're trying to call him and get him to do something for them. And we know the scene where they start cutting themselves. It gets really crazy, and Elijah ends up saying, "Hey, is your God on vacation? Maybe he's going to the bathroom." It's quite comical. It was probably a pretty frightening thing to witness if we were to actually see it in person. But Baal never shows up. And then Elijah digs a trench around the altar that he has made and pours water all over the sacrifice and the altar, and water fills up in the trench around it. And he simply calls on God. And God sends a fire and consumes everything. The sacrifice, the altar, the water, it's just gone. Clearly, Yahweh was the one true God and was the powerful God. And the prophets of Baal should not be limping between two different opinions, but rather they should have chosen Yahweh, the one true God. But it's in this moment that Elijah has to actually run away because he's kind of fearing for his life. Jezebel wants to take him out. She's not happy about the fact that Yahweh showed up Baal. She's not happy about that, and she's blaming Elijah for it all, and so Elijah has to go hiding. God tells Elijah to wait for him, and he will come, and he will talk with him. And this great fire comes through, this great whirlwind comes through, this great earthquake comes through, these really loud and powerful moments. But God was not found in those moments. Instead, God was found in what Scripture says is a thin silence. it's in that thin silence that Elijah goes out to meet and hear from God, and to be encouraged by God, even in the midst of a very volatile moment. You see, I think we get caught up limping between two different opinions. I think sometimes it's because of fear. Certainly, I'm sure the prophets of Baal were afraid of their king and afraid of Jezebel. If they weren't going to do their job, so to speak, if they weren't going to maybe limp between the opinions and try to play the field on both sides, they might lose their life. And so it was easier to continue that way. Church, I think sometimes we limp between two opinions. We might align ourselves so closely with a certain group, whether it be a political party or not, but that we align ourselves so much with them that even the things that aren't godly, we find ourselves aligning with. And meanwhile, God's just asking us, why are you limping between two opinions? Serve me or don't. And we have found ourselves in a very volatile moment in history. And we've got to ask ourselves where we belong. And if you find yourself tired from all of this, if you find yourself a little scared or worried about everything going on, whether it's the political arena or if it's the whole COVID situation, I think we can find some solace and rest by just trying to be silent before God. You see, it's the thin silence that God was found in. It wasn't those powerful moments, the earthquake, the whirlwind, or the fire. It's the thin silence. In church, I think we get so distracted by the show around us that we fail to just pause and listen for the thin silence, to the silence that God is trying to give to us, the rest that God is trying to give to us. And so today, as we are approaching more volatility, I believe, I want you to rest in knowing that your God has you, that your God has control of this, that no matter what happens, His kingdom is eternal, and your standing in the kingdom is also eternal, if we aren't limping between two opinions, but rather resting ourselves in Him and in the rest that He has for us. So church, find time today to just stop. Turn off the noise, turn off the news, turn off Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, and just spend time in silence with God. I hope you're blessed today, and I hope you're encouraged by what God has for you in His Word today. And we'll talk to you later, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye.